Hey everyone, and welcome to today's Explainer. I'm so thrilled you're joining us because we're about to take a deep dive into this totally isolated, almost hidden corner of Wyoming. We're going to explore how a tiny, remote community preserves its history, the geography that literally shapes its identity, and the incredibly complex layers of habitation that make this specific stretch of land so compelling. We'll journey through the Little Snake River Valley, examining both its rustic charm and the dual narratives that define its historical legacy today.
Okay, let's dive into this. Open from Memorial Day until some cold day in October. Isn't that just brilliant? Right away, this charmingly unofficial timeline tells you everything you need to know about the tone of this rural history. We aren't looking at a massive, rigidly scheduled institution in a major city. No, we're talking about a community-driven effort deeply tied to the natural rhythms of the seasons and the harsh realities of Wyoming weather. It absolutely sets the perfect stage for understanding the fiercely independent and resilient people who built and now preserve this valley.
Section 1. The Little Snake River. Geography of an Isolated Land.
To really grasp this history, we have to start with a macro view of the landscape right on Wyoming's southern border. Imagine the sensory experience of actually standing in this valley. You've got the rolling Sierra Madre Range and the expansive Medicine Bow National Forest serving as this incredible majestic backdrop. Aspens and conifers stand tall, overlooking a dale that holds about 30 miles of irrigated ranch land sitting right along the Colorado border. The Little Snake River acts as the absolute lifeblood here. As you look across the valley floor, it's carpeted with verdant ranches, lush pastures, and hayfields. But then, right where the irrigation ends, the landscape aggressively climbs into much drier, rugged sagebrush range. It's like a geographic island of green surrounded by intense, high-altitude terrain.
Section 2. Populations and demographics. Tiny towns, vast landscapes.
Because this vast geography creates profound isolation for the communities living along Wyoming Highway 70, I want you to let the number 25 sink in for a second. This is not the number of staff members at the museum. This is the total population of Savory, Wyoming, the very town where this sprawling, comprehensive museum is located. In an era where we're used to millions of people packed into cities, the idea of an entire town consisting of just 24 people is pretty staggering, right? And yet, this tiny population is actively shouldering the massive responsibility of preserving the heritage of the entire region. Now, what's really interesting about these demographics is just how stark they are across the whole area. We're talking about 3 towns spread along a 20-mile stretch of highway paralleling the river. You have Baggs with 411 people, Dixon with 97, and Savory with a whopping 25. That is profound isolation. You really have to understand this remoteness to appreciate why preserving their local history is so incredibly important to the people who live there. They're out there on their own, and their shared history is basically the glue holding these distant neighbors together.
Section 3. Inhabitants and settlers. Layers of habitation.
So, let's shift our focus to the chronological history of this land, mapping out the major transitions of the valley. Long before any ranches were built, during the pre-settlement era, this verdant river valley was inhabited by the Shoshone and Arapaho tribes. The land sustained them long before the concept of a state border even existed. Then, moving into the late 1800s, agricultural settlers arrived, establishing the ranches and irrigation systems that visually define the valley today. And finally, we arrive at the modern day, where the descendants of those late 1800 settlers are deeply engaged in heritage preservation, actively working to ensure the memories of their pioneering ancestors aren't lost to time.
Section 4. A pioneer time capsule. Inside the Little Snake River Museum.
We're zooming all the way into that tiny town of 25 people to check out the museum complex itself.
And guys, this isn't just a single room with a few dusty artifacts. The Little Snake River Museum is an extensive complex built around the old Savory School, featuring an incredible 17 additional buildings and a pioneer garden. The curators, who are local ranching families, have gathered this beautifully eclectic mix of artifacts. They've curated extensive photographs and stories, perfectly preserved period clothing, early medical instruments, and early ranch furnishings. It's a massive, tactile effort to recreate early ranch life and honor the specific individuals who tamed this slice of the frontier.
Section 5. Inside the relic building, quirks and curiosities.
Among those 17 buildings, there's one specific structure that holds, without a doubt, the most surprising artifacts in the entire valley. The Relic Building is home to a beautiful historic repository of ancestral cowboy saddles, gear actually used by the ancestors of today's local cowboys and cowgirls. But right alongside those saddles, you will find stuffed mounted two-headed calves.
Seriously, no joke. It is absolutely fascinating. It perfectly and honestly somewhat bluntly captures the reality of agricultural history. It wasn't just romantic horseback rides. It was deeply tied to biology, livestock, and the sometimes harsh, bizarre, and unexplainable anomalies of nature that ranchers had to deal with.
Section 6. Perspectives on Preservation, Dual Narratives.
So the crucial point is that history is rarely viewed through just one lens, and the way this land's history is remembered today holds a very nuanced tension. On one side, you have the perspective of the current valley residents. They hold a deep, driving pride in their late 1800s agricultural heritage. They've built an entire museum to honor the immense struggles and triumphs of their pioneer ancestors who built the local infrastructure. But on the other side, our source includes a public comment from a reader named Liz Hayes, who provides a stark reminder of the broader historical context. She points out that before this agricultural settlement, the land was inhabited by the Shoshone and Arapaho, and that the land was taken from them for this settlement to exist. These two facts sit side by side in the historical record of the valley.
And that leaves us with a final, provocative thought to consider today. How do isolated towns balance pride in their pioneer heritage with the full, complex truth of their origins? It's a massive question not just for Savory, Wyoming, but for communities all over the world as they curate their own histories. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. I really hope we helped illuminate this remote, fascinating valley for you, and I highly encourage you to keep exploring the deep, layered histories of the places around you.